Hello everyone, welcome to Lit Studio by Karishma. So today we are going to talk about structuralism. So now, what do you understand by the word structure? Structure means it follows a set of pattern, alright? So now structuralism emerged in the 20th century, and structuralism means following a structure, it means a set of rules. And now structuralism preaches that there is universal patterns to everything. Even if you take human thought, there is universal pattern to it, all right? That's what it says, which is also present in human thought, all right? Now it represents a shift away from focusing on the individual text or author's intention. For example, if you take the works analyzed through the formalism or through new criticism, we see that we only take an individual text to analyze it, all right? Or else, if you take the concepts given by Wimsatt and Beardsley, which is called intentional fallacy. If you have no idea what intentional fallacy is, I made a video on Wimsatt and Beardsley explaining what intentional fallacy and effective fallacy mean. So I highly suggest you to watch that video and get back to this video. Now, simply put, Wimsatt and Beardsley, they say that intentional fallacy is done when one commit a mistake of analyzing a text through the intention of the writer who has written it. And they say that one cannot 100% correctly estimate the intention of the writer. So that's a mistake committing on the basis of the intention of the writer, all right? So now structuralism breaks away from the focus on an individual text or an author's intention, and it focuses towards analyzing the underlying structures that govern the production of literature. So if you observe any text, there are underlying structure to every text, all right? So how do you understand that? If you have a structure to everything, how do you get that? For example, if you take the work Hamlet, Macbeth, King Lear, Othello, if you analyze any of these texts, they have certain common elements in them, and they are called tragedies. So all these commonalities can be put into what is called tragedies, all right? Because of their similarities, they would be put into this particular genre. The structure they have in them is very similar. For example, if you take all of them have to do with kingdoms, kings, or the protagonist dying, and someone actually backstabbing the protagonist, all of these elements are present in all these texts. So if you observe, those are all the structures that form the entire plot or that form the entire drama, all right? And all of these features of the structure can be combined to be called as tragedy, all right? That is what underlying structures means, and that to analyze those underlying structures is what structuralism is all about, all right? I hope you understand it till here. And now this approach considers literature as a construct governed by universal structures. That's what we talked about, of language and culture, rather than a reflection of individual creativity or personal experience. They observe these texts as a part of the language and culture, all right? For example, Shakespeare, as he belongs to Elizabethan period, influenced by the culture of England during that particular period, has written all these kinds of dramas. And if Shakespeare is an Indian, if he sees a culture completely different from what he actually belongs to, he would have completely different set of works, right? So language in which one grew up and the culture in which one grew up highly influences the books they have written. So if you have observed any of these texts, those things play a very crucial part and contribute a lot to the structure of the work, all right? Now the essence of structuralism is that things cannot be seen in isolation, all right? They should be seen in the context of the larger structure that they belong to in order to understand them. For example, you cannot just look at a work to understand it whole, right? Now you have to observe Hamlet in context of the larger structure that it is part of, that is tragedy, to understand the elements of tragedy and to apply those elements to Hamlet and to analyze that particular text, whether that belongs to that particular structure or not. All right. For example, if you see a poetry, if you see a sonnet, you should actually be able to place that in the structure of sonnet. All right, it should have 14 lines, it should actually have a particular rhyme scheme, it should do all these things a justice so that it could be put into that particular genre of poetry. And it should not be seen rather than an individual reflection of individual creativity or personal experience. What structuralism basically means is that structuralism doesn't emphasize on the fact that a book could be a result of individual creativity or personal experience. It is seen as a part of the larger structure, that it is the culture or the society that it is a part of. All right. And now, according to structuralists, every text follows universal patterns. So it is the same thing that I have told you. Even human thought, everything has a structure, everything follows a structure. For example, if you take for example, if you want to understand what structuralism is at basic level, for example, you think of a classroom. So what does the structure of classroom comprise? It comprises benches, blackboard, students, teacher, etc., etc. All these elements contribute to the structure of classroom. And to an institution, number of classrooms would be a part of it. All right. So the basic things would make up this particular structure, and number of these things, classrooms, would make up an institution. So it would always be a part of larger structure. So things can be understood only when they are seen as a part of the larger structure that they are part of. All right. So now, even in literature, structuralists say that every text follows a universal pattern. Therefore, we can develop general conclusions about individual works and the system from which it has emerged. For example, I can explain this to you in a simpler way. Now that we have understood that if you see the particular similarities between Hamlet, Othello, Macbeth, or King Lear, we can understand what tragedies mean. If we draw general conclusions from this, for example, what are the general conclusions that we can draw from the individual works? Like the protagonist is dead, or somebody backstabbing would be there, and there is a sad ending. All of these things would come. These are general attributes, right? General conclusions that we draw from what a tragedy could be. So general conclusions could be drawn from when you observe more than two or more particular texts, and you try to draw similarities between them. You can actually jump into general conclusions when you observe them. All right. And the system from which it has emerged, and that is what structuralists say through structuralism. All right. Now, structuralism has two key principles. All right. The first one is focuses on structures. That's what we have discussed even till now. At the heart of structuralism is the belief that all the cultural products, including literature is a part of cultural. It's a cultural product, right? That's what I've told you. Shakespeare being belonging to the Elizabethan period, Elizabethan culture, he wrote certain works, and if he would be an Indian, he would have written certain other works, right? So the work is also influenced by the culture that you belong to. So every literary work is a cultural product. Including literature, are structured systems governed by set of rules. These structures are not visible on the surface but can be uncovered through analysis. So they are governed by a set of rules. All right. For example, you say that it is a tragedy. If I write a work saying that it is tragedy, and I made it a happy ending. It would not be called a tragedy. Tragedy is tragedy because it follows certain rules. I cannot change the rules, right? So that is what structuralists say. And they say that it can be uncovered through analysis. Structuralists aim to identify the underlying patterns and relationships within texts, arguing that these texts are universal and transcend individual texts or authors. For example, not only Shakespeare has written the tragedies, right? For example, if you observe Christopher Marlowe and Dr. Faustus or Kids, Spanish tragedy, or any other, you can take any other tragedy, they would always have universal patterns, right? It would not be just because Shakespeare has written those particular works, only those have similar features and only those can be called tragedy. Is that right? No. Any work which is written has universal patterns with any other work which is written by any other author. And you have to observe all these texts very carefully and be able to analyze them and draw conclusions from them. That's and then you have to arrive at the largest structure that they are part of. All right, that is the reason why structuralists emphasize a lot on the structures of every work, and every structure follows universal patterns. All right, and now there is this other aspect of structuralism, that is binary opposition. It simply means, I will tell you what it means. Structuralism often employs the concept of binary opposition, where two opposing elements define each other and the system they belong to. For example, you understand good because it's not bad. You understand this in relation to this because it is opposite to this. You understand male because it is not female. You understand any work, you understand darkness in relation to light. All right, this is what binary opposition means. Every set of words could be understood because of the dissimilarities it has with the other word. This concept helps in analyzing the dualities inherent in literary texts, such as good versus evil, light versus dark, which are seen as fundamental to the organization of meaning. All right, I think I've made myself clear till now. And now, structuralism explicitly is anti-individual. I just told you that individual texts cannot be seen. Anything cannot be seen in isolation to be able to analyze, right? That is what structuralists preach. So they are very anti-individualistic. They reject the idea that literary works are expressions of author's unique personality. They reject it because it is not a part of author's unique personality. Everything that has made up the author, everything that has surrounded the author has made the work, has influenced the work. So it does not solely belong to author's personality or individual vision. Instead, it argues that literature is a product of larger systematic structures. All right, that is what structuralism means. And now, structuralism, when it is applied to literary analysis, structuralism seeks to uncover the underlying structures that organize the elements of the text. For example, if a text can be called absurd, what are the elements that are present in it that made it to be called as an absurd text, right? So you should understand and uncover the similarities between the text, uncover the structure that it is following, uncover the universal patterns of that text, and analyze the structure of it. All right, this involves looking for patterns, themes, and relationships within the text that reveal its deeper meaning. Okay, I think I have made myself clear. For instance, structuralist analysis of a novel might examine its narrative structure, character, archetypes, and thematic patterns to identify universal structures that govern its composition. This approach allows for the comparison of texts based on their shared structural elements, all right, rather than their superficial differences. So that is what structuralism is all about. We'll learn about main proponents of structuralism like Fernand de Saussure, Vladimir Propp in our next classes. And that's it. I hope you understand everything that should be understood in relation to structuralism. Now you can take a screenshot of it, or make sure you take a notes so that you can revise it and learn from it in the and use it in your further studies or whatever. So yeah, I hope you understood everything, and please make sure you subscribe to the channel. Thank you.